Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for continuing the conversation of where cannabis can continue to evolve in Canada. We're really excited today to be joined by two incredible pioneers in the space, combining the music industry in Canada and cannabis. We have Ian and Raine Maida joining us today. Welcome very much, guys. How are you?
Thanks for having us.
Very good. Yeah, happy to be here.
So we're really excited to talk to you guys. Looppool has done some really interesting things, and you guys have really been a pioneer in how you actually combine cannabis underneath the Cannabis Act and the rules. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the experience of standing up Looppool and why you guys chose to do it together, and how do you see the sector continue to grow with Looppool involved in it? Ian, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, so the quick background about Loophole is we are an artist co-owned cannabis company, and our unique message is that we are going to use a portion of our proceeds to create a grant program to help fund emerging Canadian artists. The company is co-founded by a collective of 7 major Canadian artists. It includes the members of course, Raine and Our Lady Peace, Blue Rodeo, Stars, Felix Cotal, Division, Kaisa, and Roy Woods. And so it's a really eclectic group, which is representing all genres of alternative, country, rock, EDM, pop, hip hop, and rap. And the company was founded coming after the regulations were released, because what we wanted to do was, seeing other similar plays in the market, we wanted to really unleash the potential of what cannabis can do and to be impactful in how it gives back. And so instead of creating a brand that was sort of based off of celebrity, we wanted to create something out of substance and to unite a really amazing eclectic group of Canadians together to be able to give back and to support underrepresented and independent Canadian artists. That was really the big inspiration behind the company, and why we are all banding together to try to do something really unique. And there has never before been a billion-dollar industry that has newly emerged, that has such natural ties to music and can play such a pivotal role in a way to give back and support Canadian artists.
It's it must have been a hard slog, but a really great one. And interested on Raine, why were you interested in providing that foundational piece of Looppool, and what did you see the advantage of the model, and why were you guys willing to put your significant brand and name recognition behind this opportunity?
Well, I mean, not to sound cliche, but the give back component of Looppool is obviously, it's powerful. I was lucky to come up under a system in Canada, as opposed to probably every other country in the world that supports the arts. That was just that. It was incredibly supportive, whether it's from Factor to Much Fact to any of the other, organizations that do just kind of funnel money to help artists kind of get a leg up and start careers. This probably, I don't have the exact data, but I would imagine that there's so many people in the arts these days. There's no way Canada and those organizations can keep up. So adding another one to the mix, as well as having, the for artists by artists component is really important. And I think especially with the artists that we have on this board, they've all been through it. They understand it. We understand the gaps that need to be filled. We understand, probably how to get this to artists more effectively and efficiently. And so I think it's a powerful entity that we have within Looppool, and being able to execute on that's going to be really exciting.
So, one of the things that's been interesting is we've seen significant growth for the cannabis sector during COVID. It's actually one of the sectors that has continued to really expand. The numbers that just were recently released from StatsCan is an $18.3 billion valuation contribution to the Canadian economy, which would make it bigger than forestry. But not all sectors have been successful in the same way as cannabis. And, the struggles that the arts has had has been pretty significant, with live entertainment venues being closed or different opportunities. Where do you see the music industry pre-COVID and post-COVID in Canada?
Well, I mean, that's that right there. Like, they couldn't be more divergent at this point, right? So the ability for Cannabis and Loophole specifically to, you know, help get the arts community really back on its feet is what kind of the way we look at it at this point, because it's just been the ultimate struggle. You know, I think if nothing else during COVID, fans of music realized how important music is to their lives. It literally is the soundtrack to their lives. And I think a lot of people during the pandemic use music as comfort. Unfortunately, the artists just, you know, there's been a paradigm shift in the music business when you talk about before COVID that was happening on the streaming side. So you have revenue kind of being stripped away on that side, and now you take away live, and artists were left with very little. So it's been tough, and you know, I look forward to Loophole's contribution to helping lift artists again.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about the time at home. I think really afforded people to have a different immersive experience with music. And I think, you know, a lot of the data that's been coming out has been, to your point about how much Canadians actually value local music, and how it is the soundtrack to their lives, and how actually COVID has reinvigorated that love and support of the music industry. Ian, how do you see the cannabis sector and the music sector working together to support that love that Canadians have, to make sure that there's a viable and healthy Canadian music industry?
I think that this is, I truly do think that this is actually, you know, a once in a lifetime opportunity for the private sector to come in and to make a difference for not only the music community, but frankly, you know, and for both the listeners of music and for the creators of it. You know, from the music side of things, to what Raine was saying, you know, live music is especially the bread and butter of where artists are making money. And so when we come out of COVID, you know, the main way these guys were all relying on live in order to be able to engage with new fans and to be able to generate some real revenue. And a lot of these guys are, you know, working as waiters and other things like that on the side. So not only can they not be able to perform and generate some income and get in front of new fans, but even their ways that they make their major income, probably a lot of these people were sort of left unemployed. And what we really need in the music industry, and especially another concern I have coming out of COVID, is of course with the, you know, large debt burden that the government has taken on. The worry is of course that the arts programs may end up being amongst the first things to get cut. And so it kind of makes us all the more nervous and sort of scared for the creator community to ensure that you know, we keep stimulating this amazing, you know, like Canada has just changed so much how it's been on the map, you know, even the last few years. Looking now, we become, Toronto especially is now a world-class music city with major artists coming out of the city left and right, with, you know, Drake and Bieber and The Weeknd and everybody like that, and Shawn Mendes. So what we wanted to do with this was to be able to go, how can we be able to help make a difference? We're not looking to be replacing the existing grant program system, of course. What we want to be able to do is to help be able to supplement it. And especially as well in getting it into the hands of those who need it the most, which are especially independent and underserved artists, because it can be quite difficult to break into the already oversubscribed grant program. And so we have this incredible creative community here that we need to keep stimulating, to keep making more of, you know, the next generation Shawn Mendes and things like that. And it's needed now more than ever. On the cannabis side of things, the sheer challenge that all of us are left in is it's that the regulations have allowed it so most companies are really unable to distinguish between their products. And so it makes it incredibly difficult for anybody to have any unique selling proposition or even convey anything that an average consumer will be able to understand. And so from our end, we realize that, hey, if you make your mission a social forward mission, and it speaks to a, you know, something that consumers speaks near and dear to them, we've been able to create a brand that, you know, speaks to the value proposition, especially of millennials who look for brands to be social forward and to be giving back, and to instead be able to go, if we can't say anything unique about the product, then we can make a difference and be able to build our brand by being social forward. And this is, I think, not only an opportunity for Loophole, I think it's an opportunity for this entire industry in a variety of social forward causes. But truly, cannabis needs unique messages, brands need it, retailers need it, And frankly, the success of us helps increase tax revenues, increases what we can give back. So we're accomplishing all these missions. And for the Canadian music community, yeah, we need to make sure that, you know, new artists and underrepresented artists are being taken care of, and they know that they can make careers out of this and that they can build it right here from home.
A great point. And Raine, if I can ask, what changes would you like to see coming out of the COVID environment to really continue to unlock the opportunity for the cannabis industry to reinforce and support the music industry?
I just find the regulations like staggeringly strict. I actually had I just didn't understand how strict they were before coming on board with Ian, and just, you know, we're at that time now. Look, 86% of artists live $3,000 or $4,000 above the poverty line. The ability for cannabis and loophole to kind of help lift them up, it's there, but I think we do need you know, some of the regulations broadened out a bit, because there's a disconnect now that needs to be filled. And so I think until we get there, we won't be able to kind of imagine the true power of what something like Loophole can do for the creative community.
Yeah. You provide a very interesting perspective, because of course you've been involved in lots of other ventures, including on the alcohol side. Do you see some of the parallels? Ian, you spoke about it earlier about live music and the key role that it plays in support of Canadian musicians. Do you see that, Raine, as something that is crucial for the cannabis to grow, but for us to continue to suppress the illicit market, which was, of course, one of the reasons for the Cannabis Act, but at the same time support new opportunities for Canadian musicians?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think getting to parallel with alcohol would be great, but I think it needs to go beyond that even. Obviously, you know, part of my involvement in this sector really is because there's science behind, you know, cannabis as well. Our Lady Peace has done, I mean, numerous promotions with alcohol. I won't name names, but we've had, you know, even smaller boutique alcohol companies sponsor full tours. Like, the amount of impressions, the amount of awareness and just visibility on these tours with alcohol is crazy. So the fact that we can't do that on the cannabis side just doesn't make any sense, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. I think as well with that, by the way, like, you know, when we talk about, you know, both the potential of how it can make a difference for artists, I think really the first thing that we need to start looking at is the separation of regulations around smokable versus non-smokable products, because I do understand that there is a consumer safety part to this, and I understand why there is strict regulations over any product that you need to smoke. Where, let's be very clear, we completely understand, and there's a reason why it should be there. But, you know, in a weird way of providing a perspective on this, if somehow inhalable alcohol became a thing today, alcohol started from being a liquor, and then now if it became that, I mean, you would not all of a sudden then change all the regulations in alcohol in a liquid form now to accommodate this new category. And so that's really the perspective that we need to take, because, you know, in the ways that it can make just such an impact down the line. From an artist perspective, if a CBD drink company wanted to, you know, come to Our Lady Peace or come to any band and to be able to try to, you know, sponsor their tour and to be able to help, you know, get awareness through them, artists are, it opens up a whole new category for artists to look at for sponsorships and opportunities. From a business standpoint, things like that, especially the non-smokable products, especially I'm a big proponent of the potential of beverages, is from a consumer message standpoint, it is beyond difficult to try to describe any strain to an average consumer versus you can say, hey, this is a grapefruit sativa soda. Everyone just gets it and understands it. Not to mention, you know, if somebody goes to a show, people don't, you know, even if they could allow gummies, people aren't, you know, standing at an Our Lady Peace show and you know, snacking on gummies. People are there having a pint. You know, we should be able to allow this, especially as consumers are looking for more, you know, sort of lighter and new beverage choices as well. And I think so what we really need is to be able to have that, because it should at least be treated on par with alcohol, not only from the messaging standpoint, how it can give back, but I really encourage as well to then review where it can be sold, because then if we could be able to look at selling these kinds of products in places beyond cannabis stores, you're now creating a new line of opportunity for things like liquor companies, LCBO, even restaurants to have the opportunity to serve those things. And certainly, I think as well, if we are starting to get to that point, we do need to recognize that there is a overabundance of cannabis stores today. And by creating these regulations that can allow some of these, clean consumption formats to be consumed at a location, you're actually providing a means for some of these companies to be able to pivot from, let's say, retail to clean consumption lounge, so that you're also giving them an opportunity to have a fighting chance for survival and create jobs and get back on the taxes and just enable the potential of why we legalize cannabis.
Well, I think it's a great observation, and I think one of the things that's unique is the power of influence. And I think when you look at Canadian musician and the supports and the prominence that has been given to artists in the world that we have today, the opportunity for them to help create education and normalcy for cannabis is a very unique one. But of course, the regulations make that very difficult to happen. Like Raine, you talked about small craft producers being able to sponsor tours. If that happened in the cannabis sector, that'd be multi-million-dollar fines. So it's interesting that we haven't got to that parallel. May I ask, where do you want, if you could live in a perfect world in the next 3 years, where would Lootpool, Ian, and Raine see cannabis and Canadian music? Raine, do you want to go first?
I'll start, Ian, just on a very granular level. What's ultimately exciting to me is really going back to that first question, which is really, and again, it's cliche, but the give back component of this, it's so important, probably more now than ever. We have more young independent artists trying to make a go of this, trying to forge some sort of living out of it, and it's more difficult. It's noisy out there. Ian said it, like, these grants are beyond oversubscribed. So a new funnel of money, a new funnel of resources, along with the experience that comes from, I think, especially the musicians that have made up Lootpool, I think is incredibly powerful. It's unique, so those 3 years that you're talking about, if we're able to impact 20 or 30 artists and give them a chance, that is, to be honest, it's like legacy stuff for me. It truly is like that. That's something that you can only do once you've reached not a certain status, but put in your 10,000 hours in the business itself. So I think we're all equipped to give back in a real tangible way, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Thank you. Ian, what about you?
Where would I like to see this in 3 years from now? I think the biggest thing is, number one, we need some regulation changes. Again, I think it's a little hypocritical that a company can be able to advertise concentrated, liquor at 40%, but we cannot buy an ad anywhere. As a matter of fact, I can't even do anything that a minor would be able to see, which is again a bit of a hypocrisy between us and alcohol. I'd like to see as well us be able to have parity with the language that we can be able to use, again, just in alignment with things like alcohol or even things like energy drinks. The wording and the dancing that we need to do around this is it's really difficult. And again, we're not here to try to put one foot out of the box and try to test the regulations. This entire business has been designed to be able to, to quote the OLG, is to know the limit and play within it. And that's exactly what we're here to be able to do. But certainly as well, if we're trying to do this, be able to create successful businesses and to be able to, create tax revenue and give back and help support, not only RN artists, but, build hospitals and, have teachers come on. I think the first thing that we need to see is I really would love to see the change in the regulations to certainly differentiate between smokable and non-smokable. I'd very much would like to see this industry evolve in our packaging regulations. We are producing an excessive amount of waste unnecessarily. So we really could be making a much more, carbon neutral and greener impact by the legalization of this industry. And I do think that one of the other things as well that we just need as an overall to take a look at on this industry is we do need to review the taxation on cannabis products. Not only because at the end of the day, we're here to try to give back and to do all these things. And we need to make sure as well that we have a viable business, and it's not just us, it's across the entire industry. So we really want to make sure that we have that ability to be a viable industry ourselves. And in that same time, with all of us being able to have, real and better profit margins, is by that we're then also stomping out the black market, which is a huge reason why we legalized cannabis in the first place. So really all I would love to see is that if we could even just have parity in comparison to alcohol, then we really can actually unlock the potential and the profits and really be able to give back, whether we're talking about taxes to artists or even shareholder value. And yeah.
Yeah, that's really well said. The other one that I would flag for you guys as an opportunity just in the future is the social betterment funds that certain jurisdictions collect. I'll give you an example. Manitoba charges a 6% tax. Maybe one of the things that could be done in the future is it could be allocated to Canadian musicians or local community support. So I think the cannabis sector can continue to give back. Last question, guys.
I think if I can, by the way, one of the
please.
things that I would definitely like to suggest as well with this is it's that, in this industry, because it's so difficult for companies to be able to differentiate and stand out based off of the products. So we've recognized then that we want to build an identity then in how we are social forward. And I think that that's actually a huge opportunity for everybody in this industry. And I certainly should think as well that if a company is giving back, whether it is to emerging artists or to be able to support LGBTQ plus activate, groups like the Trevor Project or whatever it may be, is that if a company is, being social forward or is, dedicating a portion of their proceeds towards that, I think then there should be, I'm sure there's great accountants that have ways to figure this out already, but certainly as well, I think that should be credited towards what we're doing, because if we're giving back to Canada already through that, then maybe that could be reflected in some of those things.
Here. Last question for you guys. So Canada went first when it came to cannabis legalization as the first G20 country. We always got to give big ups to Uruguay, who was the first in the world, but Canada was the first G20. And you guys are a very unique organization that has combined cannabis and music. What would you like to see for cannabis and music go in the world in the next, sooner rather than later? What's that one cherry on the top of the sundae, if you could have that one thing, that's that pie in the sky that you could give to the world? I know it's a weird question, so
I'll tell you what, I think I can sort of start it off on this, which is it's that, where would I like to see it making a difference? Nobody ever thought that a drinks company could end up, creating incredible events and creating a record company and creating festivals and things like that. But look at what Red Bull has been able to do in the energy drink space. Similarly as well, Converse does incredible things like that in the shoe space. There's a lot of comparables in the alcohol space, and a lot of other ones have that. What I would really like to be able to see, and again, knowing if there'd be promotion around this, it's focused on clean consumption products, but I would like to sort of see a cannabis equivalent of a Red Bull be able to emerge. And I mean that in the sense of a group that is able to build a business that is now able to create incredible events, incredible experiences, be able to, sponsor and be able to support, whether it's athletes or musicians or things like that. I mean, look at how many people Red Bull has moved the needle on for their career. Again, whether you're a singer or a BMX biker, there is an unbelievable potential for cannabis in that. And I would love to see that certainly happen on a global scale of a company being able to impact lives, whether, from Canada to Israel to Mexico and wherever it is that it decides to legalize next.
67 nations around the world are talking about cannabis legalization. OLP leading a Canadian cannabis world tour in the next 5 years, Raine?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting? Yeah, I look, I don't know if there's a sector, and this is obviously new in terms of legalization, but that's more intrinsically tied to the arts. Mm-hmm. So the benefits that we can see as this grows, in terms of mental health, physical health, it's just it's all right there in front of us, and I'm just not sure why we're waiting. So hopefully that's in the near future, and especially, I know we've talked about regulations, but it's a little frustrating from the artist side, having to wait.
Well, thank you very much for your time, you guys. We're very excited by what both of you have done with Looppool and continuing to help great Canadian artists from the ground up. So you mean a lot, and we're really excited that you're pushed forward the envelope of what can be done between cannabis and Canadian musicians. So thank you very much for your time, and we really appreciate you giving that time for us today in that conversation.
My pleasure.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.